Balancing a gimbal for a fixed lens is okay, but balancing a gimbal for a zoom lens is a little bit more tricky, because the zoom lens can go all the way out and then the weight changes. What's gonna happen is that your motors has to work harder to keep your camera setup in balance. So if you don't want your motors to work harder, drain your battery faster, there's a very specific way how you can balance your zoom lens, and in this video I'm gonna show you step by step how to do it. So, how you can start balancing? First you have to assemble your gimbal. I have a few parts here. DJI Ronin has these three parts. So this tripod part, the battery grip part, which goes together with the tripod. And then it's very easy. You can put it down with the tripod while you're working on it. And then this actual gimbal part goes into the battery grip. You just tighten this knob and now you have the gimbal ready to start balancing it. Before you start balancing, it's a very important thing. You have to have your camera the way exactly you want to use it. This lens cap can go off. This sun reflector protector thing can go off. And now you have just the camera and the lens. I usually use an ND filter as well. I'm using the Peter McKinnon variable ND filter. It's not the magnetic version. Important to take off cap as well. Why we prepare everything before balancing is because if you change anything, literally anything on your camera, like you forget to take off your cap, the balance is gonna be slightly different, and then you have to rebalance it to protect your motors to work harder than they should be. Now the camera is ready, except one tiny cable for the camera to connect with the DJI Ronin S. The gimbal plate goes on the camera. Pop this on the gimbal from the front to the back, like slide it on. You have to hear this click sound, now you know it's on it. Plug this into the gimbal, this cable I told you about. This will allow me to use the record button on the gimbal, so I don't have to touch the record on my camera. Very comfortable, I holding it like this, and then I can just press record and the record starts. And now, as you can see, the whole setup is just very wobbly and heavy and seem difficult to balance. Now we can start balancing it the normal way you would balance your gimbal, and then we're gonna talk about the zoom function after it's balanced perfectly. So in my setup, usually this axis goes to the zero, close to zero. Tighten this, still shifts to the left, push it to the right. Basically, when you balance a gimbal, it's just you have to see what it does. If it goes to the left, you have to push it to the right. Basically, you just do counterbalance from left to right, right to left. It's front heavy, so you have to pull it to the back. Basically, what you have to look for is that the camera has to be very steady. It has to stand on its own without you holding it. Play with it until it's good. We are getting there, but basically your camera has to stay in actually three positions. The first one is this one. When you pull it to the back, has to stay like this without moving to the front, and when you pull it like this, the lens facing down, it has to stay like this without going back. Now it stands on its own. And there's one more thing you have to test out before you can use it. Hold the grip and push the gimbal 15-degree angle, and if it stays like that, like doesn't move, then you know it's good, and it doesn't move. Now the gimbal is perfectly balanced. The next thing you're gonna do, turn on the gimbal. There's a DJI Ronin S mobile application we're gonna use to test out if it's really perfectly balanced or we have to do any adjustments. Connected, there's a balance test option right there. Turn the gimbal 15 degrees as I did before. Just wait for the results. We did a great job. This is how you balance a gimbal normally. But since we are using a zoom lens, if I push the zoom lens all the way to 70, the motor's really gonna start to suffer. They have to work very hard on balancing the zoom lens, because I set the balance to 24 millimeters and 70 is gonna go way out. If the motors has to work harder, then the battery gonna drain, and I don't even wanna ruin the motors as well. Push this button twice. This puts the gimbal into like a kind of sleep mode. You have to find a perfect balance in your focal length in the middle, 24 to 70. If I push this lens all the way out to 70, it's gonna go way out like this part. So I have to find a spot somewhere between. For me, this looks like somewhere close to 50, or actually a little bit under 50. Now you actually just have to rebalance, pull it back until it stands straight. It stands perfectly correctly straight. And just to make sure, we can push another balance test. Almost finish, almost finish, almost finish. The balancing is perfect. Now if I push out this zoom lens, let's say all the way to 70, the motors work a little bit harder, but not as hard as if I would balance it to 24, and then if I push it to 24, the motors also doesn't have to work as hard, and then just push it back to 40. That is how you balance a gimbal for a zoom lens. And just leave me a comment. What is your favorite lens that you like to use on your gimbal? If you find any value of this video, just press it a like, subscribe to my channel for future content like this. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.